Hey, before I begin, I was mulling over how to do this video, but I think this is the best way to do it. So, Destroy All Humans Remake has finally launched, and I have some thoughts on it since the original was burned into my memory vividly. Things have been changed, updated, etc., sometimes for the better, and sometimes for the worst. Since my gameplay recording isn't a smooth, buttery 60 FPS for some reason, and I have a lot of just disjointed example clips, I'm just going to go through semi-chronologically and break everything down that I'm dissatisfied with, as well as what I find noticeably improved. I don't want to waste too much of your time, so let's get to talking about this. Okay, starting up the game. The first thing you see is the mothership. I don't like this design. It's too modern sci-fi in its design. It has more organic shapes and neon lights everywhere. It looks like a jellyfish, and it reminds me too much of the Covenant from Halo. The original design was stubbier, had some hard straight lines, the hex mesh pattern was nice to look at, and the color scheme reminds me of Oil Slick, which is stealthy yet alien. What's more, the art design of the new mothership conflicts with the design from the saucer, since they changed very little, because how do you improve on perfection? You can't, it's perfect. Mwah! So, because of this conflicting art style, it makes the Furon tech a little disjointed and inconsistent. Furon tech is a combination of rigid lines, some smooth curves, and usually has shiny aluminum or steel, dark blues, deep purples. But now, between the saucer, the guns, Crypto's suit, the mothership, and the probes, you can see that things were redesigned versus which things remain consistent to the old style. Look at the probes, how they've been changed from the 1950 sci-fi steel bug to a dark metal broken down droid, and it looks a lot like the droids from Star Wars. I'd rather they had updated and added on to the designs rather than remodeling them and forgetting those core aesthetic choices that tie everything together. Also a minor gripe, why don't you have the charge up and blast off tied to the music sting like in the original? This seems to be an oversight, but I'm pissed about it nonetheless. The original had a way cooler presentation. Anyhow, let's move on. Crypto's suit. Again, not a big fan of the redesign, but I'm not really bothered by it because later in the game you can unlock the original suit and play with it, which I think I would rather do, and I somewhat wish I could actually have it unlocked from the start, but whatever. Okay, so let's break down the opening and the cutscenes and jump through those quickly because I'm sure no one really cares about these things other than me, but let's go. First, we don't need this stupid trigger warning. If you can't comprehend this game is rated T for teen, and you can't handle that they say mean things, and use mean words, and they use crude humor, and suggestive themes, and language, then you shouldn't even be here. You got yourself into this is what the people want. Suck a railroad spike if you think this game should be rated E, because you're seriously mentally deficient.
Generally speaking, I make it a rule to only endorse content that can be reasonably enjoyed by everyone, and this release blatantly misses the mark. Maybe we can cut all of it out with a patch.
I don't care for the new cartoonish art style of the human characters. The old style was much closer to realism, so it had this sense of 1950s B-movie feel with realistic people doing incredibly forced or absurd dialogue, and that made it funnier. And it had a greater impact with everything they say or do. With the cartoonishly designed people, instead of adding to the satirical and ridiculous nature, it subtracts from it, because you're almost too distracted with the way the characters look, and their dialogue now actually meets your expectation as to how they would look, rather than subverting it, which is where much of the humor actually stems from. Consider this. If the Naked Gun series or Airplane was an animated film, then you would essentially be watching a Family Guy movie. But because they use real people and settings, the mere ridiculousness juxtaposed with the typical seriousness of the scenarios only adds to the humor. So yeah, I would say this is a mistake, and let me show you some of my outstanding examples.
Martha, you didn't tell me we was having barbecue for dinner?
Wait a minute, that ain't steak.
Wait a minute, that ain't steak.
Holy mother!
Holy
Martha,
mother!
give me the shotgun!
Martha, give me the shotgun! Did you see what I saw? You bet your sweet ass I did. What did you see?
Little green man in a flying saucer wiping out the best infantry unit in the U.S. Army.
Right, good. Me too. Green? Not gray?
Don't be a stiff. You know what it means?
Absolutely.
What? It means the paper's got it right for once. Get on the horn to Silhouette. We've got the worst case scenario.
The eggheads were actually onto something?
I don't believe it.
Believe it. Roswell was only the beginning. The invasion is on.
See, and even the comedic timing is off with all of these scenes. I mean, I put them side by side, and you let them roll together, and they just deliver their lines at different times, and it just doesn't work as well. I like the old version better. Also, you may notice in almost all the cutscenes, both opening and in-game, the camera switches around way too often and barely ever holds on a shot for more than a couple of seconds. It always has to be moving or filmed at low offset angles or switching all over the place rather than giving shots that allow you to focus on the characters, their actions, and the other characters' reactions. Of course, it doesn't need to be a shot-for-shot remake of the original, though. I understand that, and I totally agree. But at the same time, the camera doesn't need to be all over the place and doing all the emoting and all the animation for the characters. The characters are already doing that themselves. It looks like it was filmed by a novice film student who's trying too hard. Also, I noticed some subtleties are either missing or just done wrong. In this scene approaching the saucer, there's less caution from the soldiers, having their entire Judeo-Christian 1950s reality being called into question as they walk up on evidence of a hostile alien species. In the original, there was much greater sense of the tension in the air, and Crypto is also more emotive and angry. This guy even stumbles back when Crypto gives him that menacing look. But in the remake, Crypto looks pretty calm and cold, which doesn't really match his character at all. Also, the transition was done better because the star map flashes exactly on Crypto, indicating that this is a signal coming from him. But in the remake, it's just in the center of the screen, which implies nothing. Then in this scene, aside from the fact that the background is filled with neon-lit blues and greens and being super busy visually, I can't help but notice Pox's lip syncing kinda sucks here. He never really closes his mouth or purses his lips to create the sounds coming out of it. Meanwhile, Crypto's lip sync is perfectly fine.
Less of an evolutionary dead end than your predecessor.
You lost me.
Shall I tell you a secret? Few of our people know this, but the DNA patterns in our cloning banks are becoming more and more degraded with each new clone.
That's bad, right?
Only if we want to retain our immortality through cloning. Of course it's bad!
And even later,
Funny.
when Pox is in
Let's just say
hologram
I'm
form,
glad
the
I'm
lip
up
syncing is
here
actually good.
And you're down there. Loathsome little planet. Now, Crypto, to ensure this invasion runs smoothly, it is...
So, it just feels lazy and like they did this recreation of the opening scene before any of the actual gameplay animations, which could also be adjusted and fixed more easily than splicing together a new opening just to polish off these minor errors that nobody would even notice otherwise. Too much camera movement again. Although I like how much more animated the characters are, but again, let the characters do the animation and movement, not the camera. Okay, this scene here really bugs me. Watch.
Patience, Crypto, patience. I take your point. Prepare the mothership.
That's what I'm talking about. So, what's the name of this crummy planet?
Our destination. The planet Earth.
See how long it took? How empty it was? This is the original.
Patience, Crypto, patience. I take your point. Prepare the mothership.
That's what I'm talking about. So, what's the name of this crummy planet?
Our destination. The planet Earth.
He says the line, it's echoey, grand, ominous, and Earth, again, is implied by the twinkle sound effect and the flash right when he says it. This is good. This other one, boring. Waste of time. I don't get what they were thinking here. Okay, what else can I nitpick? The Blue Moon Cinema sign now says Plan 42 from outer space rather than Plan 9 from outer space. I don't know if this was a legal issue or if this was a deliberate in-joke, maybe referencing Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or something. But either way, it's an odd change. And they even have the concept art showing the original Plan 9 sign, so I don't get it at all. Okay, finally to the gameplay. The first on that front that I notice is the mental power concentration gauge has been removed. So now you can do just about everything back to back without a recharge cooldown time, which is nice. It's a faster paced gameplay mechanic, but now there's that slight level of difficulty removed, as well as the upgrade path that's been changed to fit this edit. I kinda wish this was more of a difficulty setting option that you could turn on or off as you see fit, or lock behind a cheat code that you entered like in the original, which I knew by heart back in the day. Or hell, just make it a frickin' upgrade. I mean, why not? You know, like, okay, first you have to have a concentration, then you finally upgrade it to the point where you don't have to worry about it at all. I mean, that makes more sense to me. And then there's the PK power, which has been streamlined for the worse. In the original, you could flail things around and have control over it with the right analog stick, and when you held the stick down in any direction and used the throw function, you would then toss that object in that direction, either straight up in the air, smash down on the ground, or left and right out of the way. But now, it's just push forward and away, or kind of into the ground if you look down enough. Granted, this new style of control is handy in this side activity, but I can't help but feel like the lack of control over the subject, and I could have both meticulous control and still sufficiently perform as well as I did with the streamlined controls. Also, when I use the power to throw things at people, I feel like I miss more often, even with the lock-on feature. In the original, I recall there being a semi-intelligent auto-lock-on which threw objects at targets, even when they were moving, and I would hit more often than not. But now, even locking on, force-pushing objects at target just feels like tossing rocks with the accuracy and strength of a toddler. And there's the multitasking aspect that was advertised, where you could both hold enemies and fire or fly or use another power on a different subject. But on the other hand, now you can't use multiple powers on a single subject like in the original, where you could lift a person and extract or read their mind at the same time. I can see why they would think that isn't very useful now, but it's still a noticeable change. But the jetpack is great. The new animations and the addition of the constant descent really feels like you're flying and extending your flight time, rather than the stiff animations of the old stuff. And you don't have to use that tapping method after your jetpack used up its charge. Oh, and the jetpack instant recharge at the moment you land is also nice and convenient, rather than the time recharge of the original. But again, I feel like there's a missed opportunity to actually include this as an upgrade rather than an outright removal, so that you could earn these conveniences rather than outright just change them. Anyways, the jetpack and skate abilities are hands down the best addition improvements to the game, though I can see them being abused fairly often, and it makes the game slightly easier to play. Oh, and you can have more actors on screen now, since the engine can handle it, so now you can really amass an angry mob of police, farmers, soldiers, agents, all running after you, so that's cool. Speaking of what the engine can handle, now that I switched to that, the destructive environments and texture layering that stays consistent is this really neat thing that the old one just couldn't do. But it also highlights all the objects that were made indestructible, like some of the bushes and props. Meanwhile, everything is burnt around it. So, seriously, how much lead did they put in that white paint on the fences? Oh, but thank you for this vertical laser. That's a good addition. Thank you for this. That bike survived? Oh, come on! Also, I already turned off the subtitles, so why do they still have them for the newspaper? You know someone took the time to actually write that article there, and damn it, I'm gonna read it! Get that subtitle out of here! Okay, so after playing the full game for a couple of days, some of my notes or complaints somewhat ironed themselves out as I played through it. Added abilities and upgrades, and putting them to use in various situations. Again, more things popped up that I noticed were simply slightly changed or modified, but nothing too egregious. And some of the balancing issues worked themselves out as the game's difficulty and expectations progressed. For example, the brain extraction DNA numbers used to be important, where they would vary depending on the person you extract the brain from, with some of them being worth hundreds, and dead ones only being worth 10. But this worked itself out balance-wise due to DNA not being a difficult thing to earn, with side activities and the upgrades to the extraction ability taking a turn for quantity over quality. While it was a change I noticed, I quickly got over it, and I just enjoyed the game for what it is, which is still pretty damn good in my opinion. I'm having a lot of fun playing it. But hey, if you agree with me, then share your opinion with THQ, share the video with other people, and maybe you can get some good changes made to the game rather than changing stupid stuff like the offensive language. Also, don't get me wrong, I'm glad the game exists, and I really enjoy playing the few hours of the demo as well as playing through the full game now. And playing with all the subtleties and mechanics to make the video, I recommend it wholeheartedly. So, thanks for watching and hearing out my thoughts, and yeah, bye.